What Buck forgot to tell you, Guarnere was behind him. I had a leg bag too. If you know what leg bags are, the line be sort of that. Right before D-Day, you packed all the stuff in there. You kept packing it like a broad. You kept packing more stuff. You couldn't even pick it up. Now Buck Compton was the jump master. He jumped out. I was behind him. I had a leg bag. Joe Toy was behind me, a leg bag. When I put the leg bag on my foot, I was flying over. You know what happened? My foot went sound asleep. It was dead. Now you got that order to stand up and hook up. I fell down. I couldn't stand up. No Joe Toy, just right out the door. And I'll tell you this about my sergeant behind me, Joe Toy. He's not here today. He had that rope wrapped around his wrist 4 or 5 times. You're only supposed to wrap around once. And you're let loose, and that's it. It ripped his arm from the elbow to his thumb. Ripped all the skin right the hell off of it. When I seen Joe when I got down, I said, Joe, he said, look the way he spit on it, wrapped it up, and he went about his business. That's the man you had in the company, tough and hard. Okay?
Mr. McClung, Earl, would you like to share a story of where you came down on D-Day?
Yeah, I had a little better luck than these guys. I had a leg bag on too. Well, I still had a leg bag when I got down, but there was no bottom in it. I came down in a town of St. Mary Glees on top of a little shrine behind the church. And that was about 13 kilometers where I was supposed to be. And all the maps we had to show us what to do when we got on and where to go when we got on the ground. There wasn't a thing around me, any place that I could find a name that was on that map. So, like Buck says, I don't know how we won that thing, but we did.
Next, we'd like to show you a brief film clip from one of Easy Company's D-Day battles, the battle at Bray Manor in Normandy. Could we roll that clip, please?
I didn't quite get the question.
Fire in the hole! Fletcher, covering fire! Third gun, here! Lorraine, grab some more of those potato mashers and follow me! Malarkey, oh, you two, go! Running a little low on ammo, sir! How about you, Malarkey? Okay! Think you got enough to take the third gun? We'll soon find out, Dick. Malarkey, let's go! Toy, cover! Okay, Hall. Keep your head down! Hall! Save your TNT! Fire in the hole! Malarkey, cover the front! Front of the cannon, go!
We're fortunate today to have with us 3 of the survivors of Easy Company who fought at Bray Manor. The 4th is Major Dick Winters, lieutenant back then. He's at his house in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Couldn't be with us today due to a number of factors, but he is doing well and I guess enjoying the peaceful life he sought for himself. I'm also reminded that we were to be joined today by Shifty Powers, one of the leading Band of Brothers veterans, one of the great guys in the unit. Shifty is a little under the weather himself and couldn't be with us today, but just want to recognize him in the terms of this empty chair on the panel. Now I'd like to ask if the men who fought at Bray Manor, starting with Don Malarkey, if you have any stories to share about that famous battle.
I'm a little bit handicapped with my ears, so you have to bear with me. talking about my ears, Tony Bennett wrote a song. They sang "Bury My Heart in San Francisco" or whatever it was, and I could write the same song about my ears, but I left them in Europe. And it wasn't all combat. The buckle was responsibility of lousy battalion doctors that let me get a massive infection in my head and not do a damn thing about it. Anyway, that's another story. But I'm not blaming anybody here, but it's the doctors that did it. But on Bray, when Buck waved us across after he dropped in a trench the Germans had there, I ran out into the field running up at that first gun. And when I got in about 50 feet of it, I pulled a grenade out and threw it. And but before the grenade ever landed there, there was a hail of Tommy gun firing that came out of the trench. Probably Winters and Buck and Guarnere, probably, might be all three of them. The gunners went right down, but one dead and the other one ran out in the field. And I got up there at the gun and looked at the dead guy and then looked out in the field and then went brain dead, and I ran out there thinking I'd get a gun right away. That's enough about that, me. Thank you.
Any stories about Breakcourt? Any stories about Breakcourt?
Yeah.
You're lieutenant.
Well, again, about Breakcourt, it's not portrayed very accurately in this clip. Not that it's any big deal, but it wasn't all the planned action that they would, as represented to be. I had picked up about 5 or 6 guys along the way when I ran on the morning of D-Day, when I ran into Winters standing by a barn there with I have half a dozen more guys. And we could hear this artillery being fired off to our right, and we could hear some of it landing, and Winters said to me, he said, I don't know where they are, what they're shooting at, but there's some pretty heavy artillery. He said, why don't you go over there or crawl out there and take a look, see what you can tell about it. So what I'm getting at is that we didn't meet in a barn and spread out maps and look and plan some grand strategy. It was all by the seat of our pants. I crawled out across this field and peeked through the hedgerow, and I could see these 2 guys stoking this gun. I thought I was going to take them all by myself. I jumped through the hedgerow into this trench, and they were about as far from me as that speaker is over there. And I had this Tommy gun that I'd picked up during the night, a Thompson submachine gun, but I hadn't had a chance to fire it. It was to replace the weapon I lost in the leg bag. So when I jumped into this trench, I was going to give it the old gangster business from the movies and spray him with this Tommy gun. When I pull the trigger, it goes plunk, and I rack it back, and it ejects a live round. About that time, Guarnere lands in the trench beside me, starts firing, and these 2 Germans look at us, and their jaw drops, and they take off running. We let fly with some hand grenades. I think we hit one of them, but that's about all there was to Breakcourt Manor. It wasn't the master tactical stroke that it's portrayed to be in the series. And I don't mean to be a curmudgeon, but I just want to be honest with you.